Hello everyone and welcome back to Anton Recipes. Now the recipe that I'm going to do today is a lovely recipe. It's a Caribbean patty and it's done with a sort of a yellow pastry, and the pastry is kind of flaky. So it's very simple to do. So it's something that you can do for your family and friends, for parties or for a lunch or for a snack. Now the ingredients that I'm going to be using is some all-purpose flour, and I've got some herbs and spices and some salt and some butter. So the spices that I'm going to be using, and that is to colour the pastry, is turmeric, a little bit of curry powder and some paprika and some salt. Now the patties that I'm going to be doing today is a vegan patty, so it's suitable for vegetarians or vegans. So the filling, there's no meat or dairy products in the filling, and there's no dairy products in the pastry. So the first thing that we need to do is to add our spices. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix all the ingredients together in the flour. Just make sure that that's all incorporated together. Next, I'm going to add the butter to the flour. Now the butter is being in the fridge, so it's pretty hard. And for puff pastry, you have to make sure that your butter is hard. And the butter that I'm using is a vegan butter. So I'm just going to add that. It's been cut into small cubes, and I'm going to add that into the flour. Now when you're making the pastry, you have to make sure that your hands don't get too hot, so we handle the pastry as little as possible. Right, I'm just going to cover the butter in the flour, and then I'm going to break the butter down into even smaller pieces. I'm just squishing them between my fingers. As you can see. So it's a nice thin piece, and then break it in two. Right, I think I've squashed all the butter together now. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to add the water. Now make sure that your water is ice cold, because in order to keep your rough puff pastry crumbly with that flaky layers, you have to make sure that the butter does not melt. So if your hands are getting a little bit too hot, just run them under cold water and continue until you break down all the butter into flat, small pieces. So I'll just add the water. Okay, I'm just going to add the ice cold water to my pastry, and I'm going to add it 2 tablespoons at a time. Right, I'm just mixing it together using the spatula so I keep the pastry nice and cold. So all you're doing is trying to pull it together. You're not kneading it or warming up the butter, just trying to pull it together. Right, as soon as you see that all the flour starts to stick together and you're not left with any direct flour, then you can use your hands. I'll just scrape that off the spatula and gently pour it out onto your surface. So what we're going to do now, remember not to handle it too much, is just to pull it together. As you can see, that's starting to pull together nicely into a ball. I'm just going to add a touch more water to that. I've divided the pastry into 2, and I'm just going to roll them into a ball and just wrap them in cling film and put them in the fridge. so they can get nice and cold again. Right, that's ready now. We're going to put that straight into the fridge for about half an hour, but the longer the better. If you've got something else to do, you can do that. So I'm going to put that into the fridge, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to make the filling that goes inside. Right, the next step of making the patties is the filling. Now I'm doing a vegan patty today, and I pretty much are using all the vegetables that I like, but it's one of those recipes where you can put in whatever vegetables that you personally like. And so the vegetables that I'm using today, I've got some cooked potatoes that have already been cooked, some carrots, some peppers, tomatoes and onions, some sweet corn and some spinach. Now the spinach, all the vegetables are being cut into small pieces, and the spices that I'm going to be using is some garlic, some curry powder, oregano, garlic powder, some paprika and some cumin. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to add 2 tablespoons of oil into my hot pan, and then to that I'm going to add my onions and my tomatoes, my peppers and my spices. So I'm just going to give that a stir round. And just let that cook until the onions become nice and coated with all the spices and it starts to cook. Right, the next thing that I'm going to add to the pan is some chopped carrots. Make sure that your carrots are chopped nice and small. Just let the carrots cook a little bit, and once it's cooked a little bit, I'm just going to add the vegetable stock. Now all you need is 1 cup of vegetable stock. Right, what you need to do now, you need to let that cook down, and you want to cook it until most of the liquid has evaporated. Okay, the vegetables have now been cooking for about 10 minutes, and most of the vegetable stock has evaporated, so it's just the right time to add all the other ingredients. So I'm just going to put the spinach on top until it wilts. You don't have to stir it, just put it on top and then cover the pan with the lid. Right, that's wilted down now, so I'm just going to give that a good stir just to make sure that everything is incorporated. As you can see, the spinach is just about halved in size, which is what we want. Right, I'm just going to give it a little taste just to make sure there's enough salt. And I think that needs just a little bit of salt. Just about half a teaspoon. And I'm going to also add to that some black pepper. A about a teaspoonful. I'll just give that another stir. Make sure the salt and the pepper has gone throughout. And what I'm going to do now is to just take the potato masher and just mash some of the potatoes that's in it. That's going to soak up the rest of the liquid. Right, as you can see, everything is nicely incorporated and cooked. So I'm just going to take it off the heat, and we're going to set this aside until it cools down. You don't want it hot at all, so give it a couple of hours to cool down. Once it's cooled a little bit, you can pop it in the fridge so it'll cool down a bit quicker. So the next stage, I'll show you how you incorporate both of the filling and how you roll out the pastry to make your actual patties. Okay, now everything is nice and cool. The pastry's been resting in the fridge, so it's nice and cold. So I'm just going to roll it out and form the actual patties. I'm going to use a bowl to cut out my patties. Now there are some patty cutters that you can get, which makes it a lot easier to form. I haven't got one of those, so I'm going to just use my bowl. So I'm just going to show you how to do the formation of the patties. So what we're going to do, we're just going to take it to the edge, press down and twist. You just want approximately a spoon and a half of mixture on one side. And I've just got some melted butter here. I'm just going to wet around the edges. Just fold it over and press down. Also press down, I'm just going to crimp the edges. And then I'm just going to put 2 holes in the top to release the air so that your patty doesn't explode on you. And I'm just going to take some melted butter and just brush the melted butter all over the patty. This is going to give it a little bit of a shine. You only need it on the top. And there you have it. Over here I've got my baking tray. So I'm just going to put it on the baking tray. I've put some greaseproof paper on my baking tray, or you can just lightly grease your tin and put your patties on that. Okay, I've finished forming the patties. I put the holes in there so that they don't expand and explode in the oven. So I'm just going to put it in the oven for around 35 minutes. And you just want to bake them until they are, You just want to bake them until they're golden brown. So you want to put it on a medium oven around 180 degrees centigrade and around 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, the patties have been cooked and fully baked in the oven. Right, as you can see the layers of the puff pastry. Absolutely delicious. And I'm just gonna, they're still quite warm. I'm just gonna break a bit so you can see inside. Absolutely delicious. Such an easy, simple recipe to do. I am sure that anybody who tries this recipe will absolutely love it. Meat lovers will love it, and vegans will absolutely love it.